It may seem an unlikely place to find a new stronghold for South Africa's National Party, but in the coloured township of Mitchell's Plain near Cape Town, more than 1,000 are already signed up. Even the local MP, Stan Fisher, has recently switched from the more marginal Labour Party to the ruling Nationals. He joins a growing number of MPs from the coloured House of Representatives who are switching to President de Klerk's party.
The about turn that the Nationalist Party has done and the genuine reforms that President de Klerk has initiated, which we could physically see, it's happening. That obviously was the biggest motivating factor.
50% of the local people of Mitchell's Plain are regular churchgoers, and for Fisher, one of the main attractions of the National Party is its strong Christian base. Set against Nelson Mandela's African National Congress and its links with the Communist Party, the National Party is cleverly selling itself as the upholder of moral and cultural values.
The National Party's genius at the moment is to find and put together a coalition of minorities to meet the ANC's coalition of majorities. And that coalition of minorities of whites, of coloureds, of Indians, of some blacks, some kind of zealous Christian blacks, all those kinds of minorities. That's what the National Party is trying to put together.
In the white suburbs of Johannesburg, there are also some interesting changes in political allegiance. Ed Bernard, an engineering consultant, is one of 100,000 whites to join not the National Party, but the Inkatha movement. Led by Chief Mangosuthu Buthelezi, the Zulu-based party has long been the alternative voice of the African in South Africa, especially during the banning of the ANC. Its leader is jealous of his power base and of the traditions of his people, recently politically fighting to retain these weapons of Zulu culture against the wishes of the ANC. But even Buthelezi must be surprised at his popularity. Inkatha's membership is now twice the size of the ANC. A growing number of its supporters, affluent whites who, like Ed Bernard, have cynically joined the party to prevent the ANC from coming to power.
I cannot forget that Mr. Mandela was formerly a terrorist, and I cannot subscribe to violence. I don't believe that we should try to change South Africa by violence. I believe we must build, not destroy. I don't believe in communism. It just doesn't work, and I cannot therefore support a party which appears to have communistic leanings.
But the ANC is very conscious of its image in the political arena. And its perception as a movement of communist-led terrorists is one it's fighting hard to reverse. Since becoming a legal organization last year, the ANC has mounted membership campaigns in both black and white areas. Nelson Mandela himself has been out canvassing in the townships, the traditional strongholds of support. However, despite the launch of more than 200 local branches, South Africans of all races are showing a reluctance to sign up.
You know, after 30 years of banning, the traumas of arrests, of tortures of people that died in detention and so on, they had a strong impact on our communities. But people always supported the movement. And the reality is that, for them to come out of that state of shock is a process. And we never could have expected that they would just have jumped forward and so on.
The ANC also points out that much of the violence in the townships has been an intimidatory factor stopping people joining them. Since Nelson Mandela's release, attacks by Inkatha on local residents thought to be supporters of the ANC have left many dead and many more homeless. Observers believe that these actions have been orchestrated by a third party and ignored by the police, and they've played a major part in preventing the ANC from getting organized. And despite the popularity of Mandela himself, his party is less confident of support from the white community. At its first conference in December last year, nearly all the delegates were black. The National Executive, too, has just one white member, Communist Party leader Joe Slovo. The threat for them now is not that Inkatha or the National Party on their own could beat the ANC in any multiracial elections, but if they had to stand alone against an alliance, they could be defeated.
The National Party could, under the following conditions, namely a strong alliance with Inkatha, a strong majority support amongst colours, significant support amongst Indians, mass support amongst whites, and maybe a 20 to 30% support level amongst Africans, exploiting the communist alliance issue within the ANC and therefore attracting probably a Christian conservative vote amongst Africans, it has a good chance of getting maybe 40%.
For citizen Emily Mia, political reality brutally visited her on Mother's Day. That's when Inkatha Zulus attacked her and her family in Kagizo township, west of Johannesburg. When they'd left, she'd lost her home, her husband, and her only son.
The tall man wanted to stab me, but the other one said no. Then they hacked to death my son right here. That's his blood over there.
The raid on the squatters by Zulu hostel dwellers was apparently a massacre without motive or meaning, but it added 28 more names to the lengthening list of South Africa's dead. A week earlier, they'd buried her husband. Now it was the turn of her son Shadrach, under the colours of the African National Congress.
We are equally appalled by the continuous murder of our people by the apartheid regime in disguised forms. The perpetrators of this cold-blood murder of innocent people cannot be left unchallenged.
Shadrach Mia was one of 6 buried this day. 6 of an estimated 1,800 blacks who've been killed in the last 10 months. But Emily Mia is a victim too. Destitute and homeless, she's a victim of the political maneuverings for the new South Africa.